She mocked the humans' ancient warship, then it shattered her fleet in seconds. The Rusted Crown. The bridge of the stellar dominion hummed with quiet efficiency, its crystalline displays casting an ethereal blue glow across Commander. Zara Vex's angular features. She stood with perfect posture, her hands clasped behind her back, observing the massive viewport that revealed the sprawling bulk of Nexus Trading Station. The station rotated slowly against the backdrop of distant stars, its countless docking bays and commercial sectors bustling with activity from dozens of species. "Commander," her tactical officer reported, his voice carrying the melodic tones typical of the Altarian race. "All fleet elements have assumed standard formation. The Stellar Dominion leads 12 dreadnoughts, 36 cruisers, and 48 destroyer escorts." Zara nodded, a slight smile playing at the corners of her mouth. The hegemony's newest flagship was a testament to technological supremacy, 2 kilometers of sleek, angular perfection housing enough firepower to level a small moon. Its experimental quantum shields and Void Lance batteries represented the pinnacle of military engineering, combining the best innovations from 7 allied species. "Admiral Sindara sends his compliments," the communications officer announced. "He confirms this patrol is proceeding as planned. Intelligence suggests minimal pirate activity in this sector." "Of course there's minimal activity," Zara replied, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. "What fool would challenge a fleet of this magnitude? We might as well be conducting a pleasure cruise." Through the viewport, she watched various civilian vessels moving between the station and the outer traffic lanes. Most were sleek, modern designs, Vestalian pleasure craft with their distinctive spiral hulls, bulky Rothanian cargo haulers, and swift Zenthari courier ships. They all gave the hegemony fleet a respectful berth, as was proper. Then she saw it. "What in the void is that supposed to be?" Zara asked, pointing to a vessel approaching the station's outer docking ring. Her navigation officer magnified the image on the main display, and several bridge crew members actually laughed. The ship was ancient by any standard, a blocky, utilitarian design that seemed cobbled together from spare parts. Its hull was scarred and discolored, bearing the telltale signs of hasty repairs and jury-rigged modifications. Sections of the outer plating had been replaced with whatever materials were available, creating a patchwork appearance that spoke of desperate maintenance rather than careful engineering. "Vessel identification shows it as the Iron Phoenix," the tactical officer reported, barely suppressing his amusement. "Human registry, cargo classification. According to the database, it's over 200 standard years old." 200 years? Zara's second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Voss, stepped closer to the display. "That relic should be in a museum, not space." The human ship limped toward the station like a wounded animal, its engines producing an irregular pulse that suggested they were held together by little more than hope and stubbornness. A thin trail of vapor leaked from somewhere near the stern, and several of its external sensors appeared to be jury-rigged replacements that didn't match the original design. "Look at that hull plating," another officer commented. "I've seen garbage scows in better condition." Zara watched the vessel with a mixture of amusement and disdain. The humans had been spacefaring for only a few centuries, barely long enough to master basic interstellar travel. Their technology was primitive, their ships crude, and their understanding of advanced physics laughably simplistic. The fact that they had somehow managed to join the galactic community at all was considered something of a miracle by most civilized species. "Commander," the communications officer announced, "we're receiving a general broadcast from the station. There are reports of unusual activity in the outer system. Several unidentified vessels detected on long-range sensors." "Pirates?" Voss asked. "Most likely," Zara replied dismissively. "Probably some desperate raiders hoping to pick off a few. Cargo haulers. They'll scatter the moment they detect our presence." The Iron Phoenix had reached the station now, moving with painful slowness toward one of the commercial docking bays. Zara could see tiny figures through the viewports, the human crew going about their mundane business, completely unaware that they were being observed by the most powerful military force in the sector. "Should we hail them?" the communications officer asked with barely contained laughter. "Perhaps offer to escort them to the nearest scrapyard?" The bridge erupted in chuckles, and Zara allowed herself a small smile. "No, let them be. They're harmless enough, and we have more important matters to attend to." But as she watched the ancient human vessel dock with surprising precision, something nagged at her. The ship might look like a derelict, but its pilot handled it with obvious skill. The docking maneuver was executed flawlessly, with none of the hesitation or uncertainty she would have expected from someone flying such a decrepit vessel. "Commander," the tactical officer interrupted her thoughts. "Admiral Sindara is requesting a status update. He wants to know if we've detected any unusual activity." "Tell the Admiral that everything is proceeding normally," Zara replied. "The only unusual thing we've encountered is an antique human cargo hauler that probably belongs in a recycling facility." The mention of humans brought knowing nods from her crew. Everyone knew the stories, how the humans had stumbled into space with primitive rocket engines and nuclear reactors, how they had somehow survived first contact with species thousands of years more advanced, how they persisted in using outdated technology and crude engineering solutions that barely functioned. "I almost feel sorry for them," Voss commented. "Imagine trying to make a living with equipment that obsolete. It's remarkable they haven't all died in catastrophic system failures." "Their stubbornness is legendary," the tactical officer added. "They refuse to upgrade their technology even when superior designs are freely available. Something about human engineering and tried-and-true methods." Zara shook her head in bemusement. The humans' attachment to their inferior technology was well documented throughout the hegemony. While other species eagerly adopted new innovations and improvements, humans seemed to take perverse pride in maintaining systems that should have been retired decades ago. It was, she supposed, a harmless enough quirk, if also a dangerous one. "Commander," the sensor officer called out, his voice suddenly tense. "I'm detecting multiple hyperspace signatures at the system's edge. Large vessels, approaching fast." Zara's attention snapped away from the human ship. "How many?" "Difficult to determine. They're using some kind of masking technology, but preliminary estimates suggest at least 20 contacts, possibly more." 20? Voss moved to the tactical display. "That's no random pirate raid. Someone's been planning this." Through the viewport, Zara could see that other vessels near the station were beginning to react. Some were breaking off their docking procedures while others were accelerating away from the station entirely. The station's traffic control was broadcasting urgent warnings, and she could see defensive platforms beginning to power up. "Alert status throughout the fleet," she ordered. "Inform Admiral Sindara that we have multiple unknown contacts approaching. Weapons to stand by, shields to ready." The bridge became a hive of activity as her crew prepared for potential combat. The Stellar Dominion's massive engines hummed to life, and she could feel the subtle vibration as weapon systems powered up. Around them, the rest of the hegemony. Fleet began to move into battle formation, a perfect display of military precision and overwhelming force. Whatever was approaching would soon discover the folly of challenging the might of the hegemony. On the station, the Iron Phoenix had completed its docking procedures. Zara spared it one last glance before focusing on the approaching threat. The human ship sat motionless at its berth, looking more decrepit than ever against the backdrop of the station's gleaming superstructure. Soon, she thought, they would all witness the true meaning of superior firepower. The last thing Commander Zara Vex expected was that the rusted human freighter would be the key to their survival. When legends awaken, the hyperspace distortions materialized into a nightmare that Commander Zara Vex had never imagined. 27 vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, sleek, predatory ships painted in deep crimson with black lightning bolts across their hulls. Each one was easily the size of a hegemony cruiser, but their design was unlike anything in the standard databases. "Identification confirmed," her tactical officer announced, his melodic voice now strained with tension. "Those are Crimson Reapers, military-grade vessels using stolen hegemony technology." Zara felt ice form in her stomach. The Crimson Reapers weren't just pirates. They were the ghost story that kept admirals awake at night. Former military officers who had gone rogue, taking with them classified weapons technology and tactical knowledge that made them the most feared raiders in the galaxy. "How is that possible?" she demanded. "Intelligence reported they were operating in the outer spiral, thousands of light years from here." "Commander," her communications officer interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel." The HFY main display flickered, revealing a scarred face that belonged in nightmares. Captain Jorik Bloodaxe, former hegemony tactical genius turned pirate lord, smiled with predatory satisfaction. His cybernetic eye glowed red as it focused on Zara, and the ritual scars across his face seemed to writhe in the holographic projection. "Commander Vex?" His voice was like grinding metal. "How convenient to find the hegemony's newest toy so far from reinforcements. The Stellar Dominion will make a fine addition to my collection." "You're outnumbered, Bloodaxe," Zara replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Surrender now, and I might consider showing mercy." Bloodaxe's laughter was genuinely terrifying. "Outnumbered? My dear Commander, you misunderstand the situation entirely." Behind his fleet, space began to shimmer as dozens more vessels decloaked, smaller raiders and support ships, but enough to turn the odds decisively against the hegemony force. Zara realized with growing horror that this wasn't a random encounter. The Reapers had been planning this ambush for months, possibly years. "All vessels, battle stations," she commanded, "engage at will." The space around Nexus Station erupted into chaos. The Stellar Dominion's Void Lance batteries opened fire, sending coherent energy beams lancing across the void toward the Reaper fleet. The first few shots struck their shields, which flared brilliant white before adapting to the frequency. Stolen. Hegemony adaptive technology being used against its creators. "Their shields are modulating," her weapons officer reported. "Standard Void Lances are having minimal effect." "Switch to plasma charges and quantum torpedoes," Zara ordered, watching as her fleet engaged the enemy. The first exchange looked promising. Several Reaper vessels took hits, and one of the smaller raiders exploded in a brilliant fireball. But the Reapers had come prepared. Their return fire was devastating. Concentrated bursts of energy that seemed to slice through hegemony shields like they weren't there. The first destroyer escort vanished in a nuclear fireball, followed seconds later by another. "Commander," Voss reported, his face pale. "They're using our own tactical algorithms against us. They know exactly where to hit for maximum damage." On Nexus Station, the civilian vessels were scattering in all directions, desperate to escape the battle zone. Through the chaos, Zara caught sight of the Iron Phoenix, still docked at the station, apparently oblivious to the carnage erupting around it. "Get me a channel to that human vessel," she ordered. "Commander?" Her communications officer looked confused. "Just do it." The channel opened, revealing the bridge of the ancient freighter, a weathered man with steel-gray hair and calm. Eyes appeared on screen. Despite the battle raging outside, he seemed completely unperturbed. "This is Captain Thane Korvik of the Iron Phoenix," he said in accented standard. "Quite a light show you've got going out there." "Captain Korvik," Zara spoke quickly, "you need to evacuate immediately. This is not a place for civilian vessels." Thane glanced at something off-screen, then back at her. "Actually, Commander, I was about to offer you assistance. My daughter Lydia has been monitoring your tactical situation, and frankly, it doesn't look good." "Assistance?" Zara almost laughed. Another explosion lit up the viewport as two more of her cruisers were destroyed. Captain, with all due respect, this is a military engagement. Your vessel is more than it appears, Thane interrupted gently. The question is, are you too proud to accept help from a worthless human relic? Before Zara could respond, Admiral Sindara's face appeared on another channel. The veteran commander's flagship was surrounded by enemy fire, its shields flickering. Dangerously! All vessels, fall back to defensive formation Gamma, he ordered. We're taking too much damage. I'm calling for reinforcements. Sir? Zara replied. The nearest hegemony fleet is 6 hours away. Then we hold for 6 hours, Sindara said grimly, just as his transmission cut to static. Through the tactical display, Zara watched his flagship's shields fail completely. Commander? Thane's voice drew her attention back to the human captain. I don't have 6 hours to waste. Are you going to let me help, or do you prefer dying with your pride intact? Around them, the battle was turning into a massacre. The Reapers had divided the hegemony fleet into smaller groups, using superior numbers and intimate knowledge of hegemony tactics to systematically destroy them. Already half of Zara's destroyers were gone, and the cruisers were taking heavy damage. What could you possibly do? She demanded. Thane's smile was enigmatic. Watch and learn, Commander. The Iron Phoenix began to undock from the station, its movements no longer the clumsy maneuvering Zara had observed earlier. Instead, the ancient vessel moved with predatory grace, accelerating smoothly away from the station despite its apparently decrepit engines. Lydia, she heard Thane call to someone off-screen, initiate Phoenix protocol, full combat configuration. What happened next defied everything Zara knew about human technology. The Iron Phoenix's hull began to shift and reconfigure. Sections that had appeared to be random patchwork suddenly aligned into purposeful patterns. The scarred plating wasn't damage. It was camouflage hiding sophisticated armor panels that now locked into place with mechanical precision. Hidden weapon ports opened along the ship's flanks, revealing arrays of weapons that shouldn't have been possible on a vessel that size. What in the void? Voss began. Surprise, came a new voice over the channel. Younger, female, with the same accent as Thane but sharper with excitement. I'm Lydia Korvik, Chief Engineer of the Iron Phoenix. Also happens I designed most of the weapon systems you're about to see. The human ship's engines, which had been producing that irregular pulse, suddenly roared to life with power that sent gravitational waves rippling through local space. The Iron Phoenix accelerated toward the nearest group of Reaper vessels with impossible speed, its hull crackling with energy fields that Zara didn't recognize. Impossible, her tactical officer whispered. Those engine readings. They're showing power output equivalent to a dreadnought. The first Reaper raider that engaged the Iron Phoenix lasted exactly 4 seconds. The human ship's weapons, whatever they were, simply erased the enemy vessel from existence. No explosion, no debris field. One moment the raider was there, the next it was gone. What kind of weapons are those? Zara demanded. Trade secret, Lydia replied cheerfully. But if you must know, we call them erasers. They shift matter slightly out of phase with normal space-time. Very clean, very efficient. The Iron Phoenix tore through the Reaper formation like a shark through a school of fish. Its weapons, fired in patterns that seemed almost artistic, each shot perfectly placed to cause maximum destruction. The ship itself moved like a dancer, evading return fire with maneuvers that should have torn apart any normal vessel. How is this possible? Zara asked. Your technology, human technology, it's supposed to be primitive. Thane's laugh carried a hint of something dangerous. Commander, humans have been surviving in hostile environments for thousands of years, before we ever reached the stars. We learned long ago that looking weak can be an advantage. Another Reaper cruiser vanished under the Iron Phoenix's assault, and suddenly the tide of battle began to shift. The surviving hegemony vessels, inspired by the human ship's example, pressed their attack with renewed vigor. You let them underestimate you, Zara realized. Every species in the galaxy thinks they know humans, Lydia explained, as her ship executed a maneuver that bent the laws of physics. They see our primitive technology and assume we're harmless. It never occurs to them that maybe we keep the good stuff hidden. Captain Bloodaxe's face appeared on the main channel again, his expression no longer confident. What is that ship? What are you? Thane's smile was predatory now. We're humans, Captain. We specialize in impossible things. The Iron Phoenix turned toward Bloodaxe's flagship, its weapons charging with energy that made space itself seem to shiver. In that moment, Zara understood that she had witnessed something historic. The moment when humanity revealed they were never the helpless primitives everyone believed them to be. The ancient freighter, scarred and patched and dismissed as worthless, had just saved the most powerful fleet in the galaxy, and somehow, Zara suspected this was only the beginning.